This is John for Global Traveler. Today I have the pleasure of talking travel and baseball with former Major League pitcher and actually international pitcher, Don August. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. I'm dying to talk to you. You have a book out, which we're certainly going to get to, Pitching to the Corners, my post-MLB Career Abroad, which is fascinating. It's going to tie into the whole travel topic. But first, I want to cover a little bit about your career. You were in the 1980, you're on the 1984 Olympic team. How exciting was that for obviously a young pitcher like yourself?
Now, that was very exciting. First of all, it's the Olympics. Everyone knows about that. And back in 1984, that was still the time of using the amateur players. So we haven't gone to the professionals. And so it was like the best college baseball players that made our 20-man team. I went to a little small college, a little Division II college out there in Southern California called Chapman College. And I made the team with a lot of guys who were from the big, Division I programs like Arizona State, USC, and all of that. So playing in the Olympics was very exciting. Being there in Los Angeles, where I grew up at, and just saw a lot of those other Olympic athletes at the time. Mary Lou Retton, Michael Jordan, before he became the superstar in the NBA. Sat down, had lunch with him one time before, he was the big guy. So
Wow.
there was a lot of stuff to that. It was just a great experience. And for us college players, a lot of those guys played in front of nicer crowds than I did at Chapman. So this was a big time experience that we ended up playing the Olympic Games in Dodger Stadium with full houses, over 50 something thousand people. So overall, a great experience that kind of led me and my teammates into our professional careers.
Well, going into your professional career, you played 4 seasons in the major leagues with the Milwaukee Brewers. Do you remember your first batter that you faced, and do you remember your first win?
Yeah, same day. I started the season in AAA in Denver, where the AAA team of the Brewers were at, and I got called up that day. So I flew, that morning I got up and flew from Denver to Milwaukee. They had a person from the office there picking me up at the airport. And when I went to get all my bags, only half of them made it. Good thing
Oh,
my ball bag made it. So we had to leave the stuff there and to get in the van, and we would drive to County Stadium. And I walk into the locker room, just like everyone kind of talks about. You're in awe of the big locker room, Major League. You see your uniform hanging up. And I was congratulated by a lot of the players and coaches. And coaches kind of told me, hey, you're here to be a starting pitcher, but we're going to have you out in the bullpen tonight just in case. You never know. So the case would be I sitting out there in the bullpen. And another side story to this was we were playing the California Angels, which is right where I grew up at. So the game is being televised back to my
wow.
hometown. So a lot of my family and friends didn't know because it's such a quick thing. The night before I was told, and that next morning I'm in an airplane. So you don't get a lot of time to really tell all your friends and family. So I was told later they flipped the game on just to watch the game, and there I was pitching because
Oh,
I would come in the game in the sixth inning. So first batter I faced was Bob Boone,
oh,
veteran
wow.
major league catcher, had been around for a while, very experienced. And I got him out, got a little ground out to third base. I would pitch that whole inning. And then the next inning I pitched, no runs. I think I walked one guy and got the other three guys out. Then when we took the lead, scored like 4 runs, something like that. And then back in the old days, Dan Plesac, our all-star closer, did a 2-inning save and saved the game, and I got the win that same day. So kind of the exciting day. And then when I went back to the locker room doing this major league post-game interviews and stuff like that, my luggage was there in front of my locker. So okay,
A little late, but at least it got there.
got there. Yes, I was happy about that.
Now, did you collect baseball cards when you were young?
I sure did.
So how excited were you to appear on a baseball card? This is one of your rookie cards.
Yeah, well, the very first card that I did get was Topps did a series on the Olympic players that came out that 1985 set. So 5 of our players had to go back to college, so they weren't eligible to get that card made because then you were considered a professional and they
Oh,
had to keep
wow.
status. So I think the 15 of us and our manager, Rod Dato, they made baseball cards on it. So that was the first one I got. And when I first saw that, I was like happy as I could ever be. This is like, I was looking at it, I go, this thing is real. So I showed all my friends and people like that. And it's kind of, a first step, just kind of going up to what that kind of life would be like.
I mean, it's cool. And somewhere in my shelves over there, I do have a few autograph cards from you. Got you at Comiskey Park a couple of times. It was great,
Okay.
great time. Along those lines, when you were pitching in the major leagues, after a while, did it kind of become a blur as you face batter after batter, or do you have kind of a game by game almost memory of it?
Well, it's been a long time now since, and I still got a pretty good memory. While I was playing, I kept track on my own personal notes, every hitter that I faced. Just like, hey, this guy likes to swing at first pitches. This guy will chase the slider off the plate. Just allow those little notes there. And I still have those. I saved all those handwritten notes that I had for myself. And there, I still remember back on a lot of games and situations. So, it's as part of training your brain as a pitcher, at least, is remembering every situation, because you come back and see that same guy again. It was always very helpful. And, I remember listening to Greg Maddux talk, and he just would just know batter so well that I just saw something recently that they're going to take him out of a game. And he says, no, let me in. He goes, give me 2 pitches and I'll get this guy to pop out to third base.
Wow.
So I remembered how to set the guy up, threw the next pitch, and sure enough, the ball popped up to third base. So I'm not as great as Greg Maddux, but I think that's just kind of how pitchers would think and remember.
Well, Greg Maddux is one of the heartbreaks for Chicago fans like me, but we move on. How difficult was it after your major league career? You went and pitched a lot overseas, all over. How difficult was that transition to new batters, new places, new fans, new stadiums?
It was hard. It wasn't easy. I mean, traditionally, before all these leagues around the world started kind of getting more popular, you had to fight your way back through the minor leagues and stuff like that. And I did that. And, I felt like personally for me, I didn't really get much of opportunities. And then I went to Mexico to start things off, so in the Mexican League. And I just learned there, it's hard to be in a different country. And while you're there as an American, especially if you have major league experience, they expect you to be great all of the time. No leeway either way. It's like you have one bad inning or one bad game, let's say, even you had to start thinking back in your mind, they're not happy, and they're already starting to think getting rid of you.
Wow.
But then you got to deal with the culture, the food, the language, just things are just done differently and all of that. And I learned early on there in the Mexican League that I saw a lot of good baseball players who I knew from the past would go to places like Mexico and even to Taiwan and other places. And it was hard. I saw really good players struggle, and mostly because it was the off the field stuff more than anything that you had to deal with and learn to adapt to and adjust and do all that.
But pitching internationally had to allow you to obviously visit internationally, see all these cities. Was that part of the allure for you?
A little bit. I always liked traveling. I was like the guy that liked geography and history and all that kind of stuff. And, when I was going to go to Taiwan, I was at the last opportunity, back here in the United States. I did get the opportunity which was the lockout spring training year. That was after the 1994 strike where there was no World Series. 1995, it lingered into that. And remember, they're going to do that replacement player stuff. Yeah. Well, I didn't do that. I avoided that. But I did get an opportunity to go to spring training with the Pirates. And I said, okay, I'm back in AAA. I started the season with them, but the trickle-down effect and all that kind of stuff that took place, they would release me after the first month. And I knew I was actually the scout who drafted me out of college. His name is Reggie Waller. He says, I know some guys that can place you in Taiwan. Well, I started thinking, that's when some guys could start making some decent money playing in other countries, even more than you would make in the minor leagues here.
Really?
So I kind of talked to my wife about that. So I can go to Taiwan. I thought I'd go there, finish that season. Because I thought, baseball being a big mess when they finally got things back together and they had to send players down and all that. I said, I'm not getting much of a chance. Why don't I just go to Asia? Never been there. Let me see what baseball's like in Taiwan. So I did that route, went to Taiwan, saw what it was like, different food, different culture, learning how to speak Chinese, which is very difficult. And the season ended, and then I tried to see my way back into the United States, but I didn't get any offers. So back to Taiwan I went, and I ended up going back there for 5 years.
But you played elsewhere as well. You've played in the Italian League. I know you played in the Dominican Republic. Were each of those decisions like, hey, I'd like to see what it's like to play in Italy. I'd like to see the country.
Yeah. Well, I went to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. That was for winter ball. So I
Okay.
thought it would give me a good opportunity to be seen by scouts down there, because the Dominican League and the Puerto Rican League, those are big time, man. It's like their major leaguers go down there and they play in that because that's their country and that's like their pride. So they play for their local teams and all that. So that's really good baseball. So therefore, the scouts are going to be there watching the young prospects and maybe people like me. So I went there for that. It was great to be there. You're in wintertime. I'm living here outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it was dead cold winter, and I'm going down into the islands in the Caribbean and basking in some sun, which was really cool. But for Italy, that was the last year I played professionally and internationally. I was on one of my teams in Taiwan. There was a player that came and joined our team, and he was talking about how he played a year or so in Italy, and he kind of suggested this to me. He said, hey, when you're done, when you think you're going to hang him up, play one more year and go to Italy. You'll enjoy it. So I had that in the back of my mind after my 5th year of being in Taiwan. I go, okay, not going back. That's enough. I was like 36, going on 37 years old. And I go, okay, I think my opportunities of getting back to the United States have kind of really dwindled down. But I go, maybe I might want to see what this Italy thing. I go, that'd be kind of cool. I've never been to Europe either. So talked over with the wife and signed a deal with the team in Rimini, Italy. And they didn't pay that much money, but to me, it was like kind of being a paid European vacation. And I had a great time going there. I enjoyed the culture, the food, and taking trips to Rome and places like that, and just seeing all those types of things was really a great thing. So that's how I finished my professional baseball career out. And going there, I was like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
I can certainly appreciate that. So, not counting baseball stuff, gloves, mitts, any of that type stuff, what is the one or two things that you always had to bring either on a road trip or when you went to play in Italy or anywhere else? What's the one or two things you needed or wanted?
Well, the essentials that you needed to survive with, I kind of talk about that in my book a little bit. The things that you need all the time in all these different countries is always have at least one roll of toilet paper with you everywhere you go, and always have a big bottle or a couple bottles of water. You take care of those things, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So those are the two things right there.
Good advice. Well, you brought up your book. Let's talk about your book now. Pitching to the Corners, my Post-MLB Career Abroad. What made you decide to write that book?
Well, after I was done playing altogether, I'd be with family members and friends of mine and, people that lived on my neighborhood, and we'd be hanging out, and somehow a story would pop up and I'd share one with them, and they go, oh, wow, that's kind of weird. Because just a lot of weird, different, crazy things will happen to you, especially when you're in different countries and you're trying to handle it. So they go, you ought to write a book. I go, no way, I'm not going to write a book. That takes so much time and effort, and just more and more people kept telling me then. So finally it's about 9 years ago, my last year professionally, when I was all done, I hung up after Italy, was in the year 2000. So by 2015, I kind of thought about it. I go, well, let me see what this could be about. So I just started jotting some of my ideas down on a piece of paper. And I had done some interviews with a couple other authors who did some baseball books. So they contacted me just to get, some quotes and things like that. And so I called them up and I said, hey, I'm kind of interested in writing a book. Would you mind doing it? The one guy says, oh, God, I really can't. I'd love to, but I got other things going on. Okay. Called the second guy and he said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So we got into a process that, we talk, every week or two or something like that. And I'd tell him some stories. He'd write them down. He'd send them back to me and I'd, correct the little mistakes, and we go back and forth. But the whole idea was to write about the foreign countries, which is at the end of my career. So we kind of got into my background, from where you grow up at, high school baseball into college, and led in the Olympics a little bit and college summer ball. But that almost made a book in itself. So we decided, well, let's do 2 parts. And we tried to push the first one and no one bid on that. When we went to start the second part, he couldn't do it no more. Oh. So I want to finish this project though. So from the part where I last played in the majors, my last thing I actually did was like major league spring training with the San Francisco Giants in 1992. When I got let go by them, then that's when the international stuff started. And so I started writing that part. And it took me, I don't know, at least a year or 2. And then I needed someone to help me with it. And Mark Knudsen was a teammate of mine with the Milwaukee Brewers. He was this journalism major guy. And, he's from the Denver area, and he's like in a lot of, media stuff. And so he's all into that. So I talked to him like, hey, do you want to help make something out of this? So I sent him both parts. It was like over 800 pages of writing. And he said, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's make one story out of all this stuff. It's mainly going to be the second part that you wrote. We plucked in and grabbed some stuff from leading up from college and in the Olympics. And then he didn't do it chronologically. He wanted to do it in a different way. I guess the right way to say is topically. Okay. So by topics, and we gave names of each topic, and we used rock and roll songs for each of the topics.
I love it.
So the first chapter, I believe, is called Break On Through by The Doors. That was my walk-in song when I was coming in to pitch and start a game in Milwaukee.
I remember.
Breaking in, that kind of gives my background and how I broke into the major leagues. Another one is Who'll Stop the Rain? And that's talking about all the different weather things that dealt with, like a lot of rain. Like when I went to Puerto Rico, it rained all the time. I was there for a month trying to be seen by scouts. And I only got to pitch in 2 games because it just rained.
Oh, geez.
So that kind of leads into Taiwan. There was a couple of typhoons I was in, led into a big earthquake I was in. So then there's, more topics that just kind of pertain to that. And just the stories from year to year to year, but they weren't, like I said, they weren't done chronologically. So he kind of arranged this in a way, and I go, wow, that's kind of cool. So it took a little while to put that together. And it took a while to finally get a publisher. And then since we signed our contract, it's been about 2 years. I put it together, and you got to send pictures in. You got to do all these different things, make an index, And so now that whole time took about 9 years altogether. So now it's going to be out here on released on September the 27th. Can't wait to see it. And I'm very excited about it. See what it's going to be about. The one thing about writing a book or putting your personal stories out there, you kind of open yourself up for criticism or people that might hurt your feelings, or people may say things that you think are good and they don't think is funny or good. So, you open yourself up, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, through the process and the lengthy process and going through your whole career, now looking back at it, like, did it maybe make you realize like you've done some really cool stuff?
Well, when you sit down and think about it, especially when you been a number of years now, you got a lot of time, and you think about things here and there, and then after the years you kind of build up and you go, yeah, there were some really neat things that I was able to do. First of all, playing in the Olympics was a really great experience. Playing in the minor leagues, I mean, that's rough and tough. You got to battle your way through to get to the major leagues, but there's a lot of funny stories and people you knew, and not too many people get to do that. What's the lifestyle like? Then the lifestyle is much better and greater in the major leagues. And then playing around all these different countries around the world. And my whole real hope was to get seen by some scouts in these different countries. Because I always heard people say, as long as you got a uniform on, you got a chance. Don't concede. And I was doing pretty good in a lot of these countries around the world, but, I didn't get that opportunity back. And that was the main thing, to get back in the United States and have a shot at pitching in the major leagues again. I felt I could do it, but, there's millions of people trying to do the same thing. And, it takes a lot of luck, a lot of good breaks and things like that. And I gave it my best shot. I was 37 years old when I was all done playing. And I look back, as we're saying here, there's a lot of cool things that I was able to do, travel to Europe, travel to Asia, and so on.
So one last question, will there be a book tour? Will there be a book signing at all?
I'm not sure how that all works yet, but I've heard people, we're kind of talking about doing something like that. I know there's a guy that I just was talking to here just recently here in the Milwaukee area, and he does these baseball card shows, and we kind of talked because I'd done a few of those with him, and then he knew about the book. So we've kind of talked about maybe doing something like that at one of his card shows, here probably in the next couple months.
Well, if you do, I will be there because I'm either way, I'm buying the book because I can't wait to read it. When I read about the reviews and the synopsis online, I was excited about it. Like I said, I have followed your career, and now hearing about it, I'm even more excited. Is there any place that people could find out more information about you or the book?
Well, the book, it's being published by McFarland and Company, so you can look up on there. I know right now, the book is out the 27th, but people are able to pre-order it through Amazon. One of the ways they can, look about the book and maybe do something with that. I don't know, maybe all the other usual places, I guess. I'm kind of new to all this stuff myself, to tell you the truth.
Well, I found you on social media, so I'm sure other people could find you there. I will put the link up there, and people could. I'm sure you'll be posting about the book as it comes out, and I can't wait for it to come out. Mr.
Yeah.
August, really, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I congratulate you on a fine career in the majors and international. I mean, the places you've pitched, the amount of success you had is just amazing. And I look forward to reading your book, Pitching to the Corners. I think it's going to be a fantastic book, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah. So people can just on my X account, old Twitter, Don August 38. I've been posting things on that they can learn a little bit more about me, and they can get the link to look at the book too. So that'd be a good place. I think people can check me out too.
That's where I found you. I'm sure everyone else can find you there. So, Mr. August, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the book. And I hope to see you at a signing sometime.
All right. Love to see you.
Thank you, sir.